There is a prayer which a Canadian priest would often pray. And this Canadian priest would offer this prayer and encourage the seminarians, those students preparing for the priesthood, to pray this prayer themselves also. And I'd like to offer this prayer to you this evening as a way to enter into these sacred 3 days. This is the prayer. Lord, you may lead, even if it means to the cross. A prayer of only 10 words, but what a powerful prayer. What a rather challenging prayer that is encapsulated into those 10 words. The name of the priest who would pray this prayer is a Canadian priest called Father Bob Bedard. He lived and embodied this prayer himself. It wasn't a theoretical thing. The praying of this prayer led him to found a community of priests in Canada called the Companions of the Cross. Even today, 40 years on, that community is still flourishing with priests and seminarians. It's a community I hugely admire. Lord, you may lead, even if it means to the cross. For this prayer to root itself into our soul, for it to be a prayer through which we are to become fully alive, to become the people God has created us to be, one thing is completely necessary, and that is that we surrender ourselves to him. This is a prayer of radical surrender. In order for the Lord to lead us, we need to remove ourselves from the driving seat. We need to hand ourselves and the whole of our lives over to him, and then God will do the rest. Father Bob would tell his students to give God permission. This would become his signature phrase, if you like, something that he would repeat to them often. Give God permission. If you give God an inch, he would say, he'll take you to places you've never imagined. This then is a radical act of trust, an invitation to allow God to break through those barriers which we have created. The barriers of pain, perhaps, the barriers of doubt, those barriers of self-sufficiency, of control. Lord, you may lead, even if it means to the cross. This Maundy Thursday, the beginning of this most sacred Triduum, is then a night of surrender, as Jesus hands himself over for us. And as he hands himself over for us, this evening then becomes for the church a radical invitation to echo in Jesus' surrender. This is, of course, not always as easy and as straightforward as we would like it to be. We can certainly relate to Peter, can't we, in the Gospel, who finds this act of surrender to be something of a struggle, something which seems just to go against the grain. What does Peter say to Jesus at Jesus' request to wash his feet? You shall never wash my feet. But Peter does finally surrender, of course. He gives God permission. He lets the Lord take the lead and to take the initiative. What does he say? His response then becomes, Lord, not my feet only, but also my hands and my head. We know from history that Peter's surrendering to Jesus led him ultimately to the reality of his own cross, not only to founding the church, the rock, but also to the grace of martyrdom. Peter's surrendering gives us a lineage in which we still participate in and still receive blessings from. The institution of the Most Holy Eucharist, which we commemorate this evening in a really special way, becomes the divine invitation to allow God to dwell in us, to transform us from the inside out. This is a beautiful act of love, which is open and fruitful, not closed in on itself. For what or for who we receive from this altar the very body, blood, soul, and divinity of Jesus himself is the strength to be able to follow him, even if it means to the cross, as that prayer says. Let us tentatively surrender ourselves to Jesus this Maundy Thursday. Let us follow alongside him in his passion, suffering, and death. Let this most sacred Triduum become for us a moment of grace to be able to truly surrender ourselves to him, to give God permission. Take the risk. God will do the rest. Amen.